Right, hello and welcome to the DVD and Film Bloke 10th anniversary Q&A thingy. Yes, I couldn't think of a better title. 10 bloody years ago, 10 years ago I decided, why not do what I've always wanted to do for many years, make a YouTube channel. Okay, aside from literally everything else in my life. Because long before I set this YouTube channel up, I was a very active viewer of YouTube. And it hasn't really changed that much. I admit the channel hasn't really grown that much since starting it. In fact, it wasn't till the channel was about 4 years old I finally managed to reach 100 subscribers. But I must say thank you for everyone who's tuned into the channel over the years, even if you are a fucking dick. I must thank everyone. I was going to say you guys keep me around, but to be honest I would have probably kept myself around anyway, regardless of if people subscribed or not, because I'm a bit weird like that. I would definitely say my online life has been very colourful since I joined YouTube. I've had a lot of good experiences, plenty of bad experiences, but I guess I'm still here somehow. Anyway, enough of the sentimental bollocks. Let's get on with the reason you clicked on this video, the Q&A part. So the first set of questions comes from John Cleveland, aka Vertebraker. Do you feel the movie industry in charge in a positive or negative direction? To be honest, I'd probably say negative, on the account that lots of the mainstream films coming out now are just sort of the same. You know, the superheroes, everything just has to be part of some franchise. There has been a lot of really good films sort of outside of the mainstream, but the issue there with mainstream is they're trying to compete with streaming. But they're not really doing anything new and inventive with it. They're just doing the same franchise shit, filling up the multiplexes. But I guess people still show up to watch them, so I guess maybe from a business perspective it's positive, but I don't know. Sorry, I couldn't give you a more complete answer. What's your favourite movie you've discovered since starting the channel? It's very hard to say, as I've seen a lot of movies since starting the channel. If I had to narrow it down, I guess maybe the collected works of Ken Russell. Primarily The Devils, which is one of my all-time favourite movies. I've also grown quite a lot of appreciation for B-movies. I've seen a lot of weird films since starting the channel. Mystics in Bali is definitely a favourite of mine. What's your favourite video format? I will have to say Blu-ray, from an objective standpoint, primarily because it's the most recent format I've got access to. Yes, I've not upgraded to 4K yet. It's probably one of the easier formats to deal with, because I've got a HD TV, got a Blu-ray player. Blu-rays will play on my laptop. I believe 4Ks, you have to do a lot of fiddly stuff to get them to work on a laptop. So I'm not really that interested in getting 4Ks. Maybe if I do eventually get a 4K TV, I might consider buying 4Ks. But to be honest, I'm still probably going to buy most of my films on Blu-ray. And I would say we're definitely, even though physical media is kind of in a slump, we have definitely entered a sort of golden age of physical media, in the sense that there's lots of films, especially a lot of cult films coming out on the format, which many of them never escaped VHS. So that's always nice to see, these smaller films getting the attention they deserve. Because there's a lot of great films that are coming to Blu-ray which 10, 20 years ago you'd never think. I also have a fair fondness for VHS, even though I'm kind of glad it died, because on an objective level it's crap. It's a very finicky format. Only second to vinyl. It's one of the most labour intensive formats, and in terms of like picture and sound quality, like nothing can compete with it. Like even DVD's better. But I've just kind of got a weird soft spot for the format, and I don't fully know why. And I guess maybe DVD as well, although Blu-ray is better, because that's what I started collecting films on, because I was a very late adopter to the Blu-ray format, so I bought a lot of my films on DVD. And when I started the channel, that was the most recent format I had access to at the time. So in fact, that's where the name DVD and Film Bloke comes from, which I admit is kind of a username I've kind of fallen out of love with, because I've started buying Blu-rays now. If Godzilla was real, which city would you most enjoy seeing get destroy? I'm going to be cliche and say Milton Keynes, but Milton Keynes is a fairly obvious choice, and everyone living in the UK's fully picked on Milton Keynes. I'm going to stretch the rules, as this is not a city, it's a town, but Clacton-on-Sea, purely because of who they elect as their MP. What's the worst film you've ever seen? There's this film called Period Piece, directed by a guy called Giuseppe Andrews, who seems to have disappeared off the face of the earth since 2015, that nobody knows where he went. Some people think he went to a psychiatric hospital, or he's living with his mother. Period Piece is basically just a crudely edited together sort of home video compilation the guy shot, where he basically just gets a bunch of homeless old people to do some frankly depraved shit. It's really, really horrible. I'm not a prude. I think Pink Flamingos is hilarious, but there's just something oddly exploitative about it, about the way Giuseppe Andrews shot it and how he got the homeless people to do most of the things they do in it. It's kind of a film you have to see to believe. Don't watch it. For the love of God, don't watch it. But if you do, you'll be able to judge every single film objectively. No matter how bad a certain film is, at least it's not Period Piece. At least they're proper films, whereas Period Piece is not. And also, it's one of the only films where I genuinely believe the people who leave it positive reviews need help. Like, legitimately, I'm not joking. Right, so the next set of questions comes from Troyal Theatre. First question is, what is it about the VHS format that drives your love of it, and how did you learn to restore tapes? I guess, other than being autistic, I don't know, actually. I was born very late into the VHS format. That DVD had been introduced a few years before I was born. My family still had VHS. I did watch a lot of VHS when I was very, very little, but by the time I grew up, VHS was long dead. But I've always kind of had a fascination with the format, and I don't know why. I mean, it's not a great format. I mean, even DVD's better. But there's just something about it that draws me to it, and I don't know why. That I'm kind of glad the format's dead, but at the same time, it would be nice if they started making equipment for it again. And how did you learn to restore tapes? Spending too much time online. You're going to encounter clean, mouldy tapes and so on, and when I recovered a load of tapes that were mouldy, I kind of knew what to do with them. But yeah, that's the best answer I can give. How did you get such a great beard? Why, thank you. It's not a great beard, honestly. I just decided back in late 2024, why not grow a beard? I guess I just haven't shaved it off. I do get it trimmed periodically to keep it neat, but it's just there. I just grew it because I couldn't be bothered shaving anymore, and I think it suits me personally. Cheddar or Mayor Museum? Horse-a-doovers. Nah, just kidding. Mayor Museum, obviously. So the next two questions come from Outside Inside. His first question is, what are your top 5 favourite Doctor Who stories? I suppose I've not watched Doctor Who in bloody years. This is kind of just a random list. The top 3 are default for me. They're always going to be the top 3. But the next 2 are kind of a bit random choices. I get the feeling if I ever watch the show again in full, this list will totally be different. But the top 5 will probably be The Greatest Show in the Galaxy, The Mind Robber, Inferno, Genesis of the Daleks, and The War Games. What is the most underrated film you've ever seen that deserves more praise? Oh god, there's loads. The collected works of Ralph Bakshi for sure. Even though his films were successful at the time, they've been sort of seldom seen outside of animation and maybe the odd cult film circle, which is a real shame really, because his films are amazing. This one, I don't know if this counts as underrated, but there's a Hong Kong comedy film called Chicken and Duck Talk, which I'd highly recommend. Sadly, it was never released outside of Hong Kong or mainland China. But it is a great film, and if you can hunt down a copy of English subtitles, I definitely would recommend it. It's really good fun. There's also a Phil Collins film called Frauds, which I should give an honourable mention to. But it's very hard to pick, so I couldn't really give you a definitive answer. Sorry. So the next set of questions comes from great YouTube channel, by the way, DVD Review Studios. His first question is, what is the holy grail of your movie collection, rarest or most sentimental? Without question, Ash Anthology 1. In fact, I think I'm one of the few people on earth who actually has a copy of it. Big fan of the Ashton's YouTube channel and had been a fan for many years. I was aware he did put out a DVD back in 2008 or whenever he put it out. Unfortunately, by the time I became a fan of his, it had long sold out and was very elusive. There aren't that many copies known to exist in circulation. Copies of it very rarely, if ever, show up on eBay. And I genuinely thought I'd never ever get hold of it until one day a listing missing the lanyard showed up on eBay, and I just grabbed it up straight away, and I haven't regretted it since. There is a rip of it online you can presently download, and if you want close enough the experience of owning it, you can download that rip, but there's just something to be said about owning an actual copy of it, especially considering it's part of YouTube history and it's from one of my favourite YouTubers. Another mention would probably be Ralph Bakshi's film Heavy Traffic. I managed to acquire the old Shout Factory Blu-ray, which has been out of print for many years. This film was never released in the UK outside VHS. But the old Shout Factory Blu-ray sort of it very rarely shows up on eBay, and when it does, it's usually like well over £90 or something ridiculous like that. I paid about £30 for this. There is a current Blu-ray issue out in America by a company called Sandpiper, but unfortunately that release is region A locked, so unless you've got a multi-region player, you're kind of out of luck. The Shout Factory Blu-ray still holds its value because it's region free, despite the back of the box claiming it's region A. I'm just hoping like Indicator or Arrow or whoever get the UK rights and finally give it a proper release here. If this Q&A was taking place in 2020, I'd have to go with the original Star Wars trilogy. I've been meaning to get the Star Wars films for a very long time. The problem is I wanted the original versions. I don't want them mucked around with versions. These DVDs were very sought after. They cost quite a lot. Once upon a time, they don't anymore for some reason. Starting in 2020, the price has plummeted, which is a good thing because that means I can easily get a copy, and I'm still happy, to finally have them in the collection. Think you'll pick up the other Simpsons DVD sets outside the golden era? To be honest, probably not. Thoughts on Hulu-rama, if you've checked out the new Futurama episodes, that is. To be honest, I've not watched any of the new episodes. I'm not really that interested, and even though I love Futurama, I just think it ended perfectly with season 8 and they should have just left it there. But I guess any way to make money, I suppose. If you could knock out a celebrity with one punch, who would you choose? Oh, it's very hard to pick. James Corden, although he's a very, very, very obvious choice. I wouldn't mind giving Rob Schneider a good twatting. Likewise with Steven Seagal as well. Steven Seagal would probably be dead easy to knock out, to be honest. So the next set of questions come from long-time friend of the channel, Philip Coghill. His first question is, what do you consider the best looking and worst looking video transfers in your collection? It's very easy to pick worst transfers. Best transfers, it's very hard to say. I'm not that picky. I think if it looks like a 35mm film scan in decent quality, then I'll consider it a good transfer. I think like with a lot of things like restoration and editing and so on, if you don't notice it, then it's done its job. I think if you're distracted by things like DNR or edge enhancement or any of that stuff, then it's a bad transfer. If I had to pick, the DVD of Ken Russell's The Devils is definitely a highlight, because at the time Warner Brothers would not let the BFI release the uncut version, and they only ever released it on DVD. But they did do a really good job with the transfer to DVD. Oh Lucky Man as well. That's another film which is stuck on DVD, but Warner's did a really, really good job with the transfer on that. Very clean print. Looks, I don't want to say it looks Blu-ray quality, but it does look very nice. Does look very filmic. And this Sporting Life as well. This Sporting Life from Network, even though it's a DVD, it looks almost Blu-ray quality. It looks stunning. There's a lot of good transfers from Arrow and Second Sight and Criterion as well. I could pick from. Night of the Living Dead definitely being one of my favourite ones. And if I had to give a quick honourable mention, I'd have to give the VHS copy of The Keep I have. Despite it being a VHS, despite it being pan and scan and not coming from the cleanest print, it does look really nice. Very vivid details and colours in the set design. That I'm kind of wishing it got a local release on Blu-ray in this country, because I'd love to see it in HD. But the VHS does look really good, surprisingly. It's a fairly late VHS release, so I guess that helps. And as for worst transfers, the original Blu-ray release of The French Connection with the fucked up colour timing, just what the fuck was William Friedkin thinking? It's very hard to defend it on practically any level. I just genuinely don't think he looked at it properly when he did it. I think he just went, yeah, that looks good. It looks like what I want it to look like, but I don't think he paid full attention to the fact that, especially the colour smearing, it looks like a really, really shit VHS transfer, to tell you the truth. And the annoying thing is, it's very hard to get the Blu-ray with the decent transfer. That one seems to be a lot more elusive than the original Blu-ray, which is ridiculous, and it should be opposite way round. The original Arrow DVD of Fritz the Cat as well, that looks fucking atrocious. It looks, honest to God, like a VHS rip, and not even a very good VHS rip, especially with the rainbow colours and so on. It just looks awful. I believe even the DVD from America looks better. But unfortunately in Region 2, because I believe the Blu-ray from America is Region A locked, that's kind of the only version you can watch in decent quality unless you find it online. It sucks, unfortunately. I'm kind of glad Arrow later improved their game later on when it came to Blu-rays. I guess I'd have to go with the theatrical versions of the Star Wars trilogy as well. Fairly obvious choice. Non-anamorphic, smeary. They're clearly dated Laserdisc masters. They're not unwatchable. I've watched them quite a few times and I've never been properly distracted by them. And unfortunately, if and when Disney finally releases the theatrical versions on Blu-ray or 4K, that's sadly what we're going to have to put up with. Are there any formats you don't currently collect that you've thought about possibly collecting in the future? 4Ks, if I get a 4K telly, I might start getting some 4K titles, but I'm probably not gonna, because they probably won't work on my laptop. I'm gonna sort of end up putting a limit to how many 4Ks I buy. I'm also kind of curious about Laserdisc as well, even though I'm never going to adopt Laserdisc because the players are too expensive. Discs aren't that expensive if you look around, but they take up a lot of space, and what's the point? I mean, even DVD's better, as much as that's going to annoy a lot of Laserdisc aficionados. Do you enjoy radio dramas and or comedies? And if so, what are some of your favourites? To be honest, I'm not really that into radio. I'm not really listening to that many radio dramas and so on. If I had to pick a favourite radio comedy, it would probably be the Shuttleworths, the John Shuttleworth radio show, which I don't think he does anymore. Big fan of John Shuttleworth, so of course I'm going to pick that. So another friend of the channel, Liam Willis, asks, what are your thoughts on Ken Russell's The Devils finally getting an official uncut re-release? I'm over the moon. I never thought this day would come. Considering what Warner Brothers are like, especially recently with the guy who... I don't know if the guy, something Safly, is still running Warner Brothers. But given his track record, I honestly thought there was no way in hell they're going to release the uncut version. But I guess maybe because they're releasing that Wile E. Coyote movie, I guess anything's possible. I'm just hoping if it gets released on Blu-ray or 4K, and if the BFI release it, I'm hoping they don't fuck it up. Because I believe on some of Werner Herzog's films they released on 4K, like Aguirre and Nosferatu, they used AI upscaling. If they used AI, then I'd have to buy it because there's no other choice. It's either that or nothing. But I wouldn't be happy about it. If they did release it on Blu-ray and the transfer was good and everything, I'd probably still keep hold of the DVD on the account that the booklet it comes with is excellent, unless they say copy it across to the Blu-ray. But yeah, I'm over the moon, and if it gets shown in my local cinema, I'll probably go and see it. What are some of the films that grew on you on rewatch? Oh god, there's loads. In fact, there's probably loads I've kind of forgotten about. I do give it benefit of the doubt. My film taste changes all the bloody time, because there's lots of films I've really grown to, and also I do generally think it was kind of the mood I was in when I saw the films first time round. The Wicker Man is one of the best examples. I didn't much care for The Wicker Man when I first saw it, but I fell in love with it and I watched it again. Although I don't know what the director's cut's like, because I first saw the director's cut on Film 4, didn't really care for it. Then I watched the final cut on Blu-ray a few years later and I fell in love with it. So I don't know what I'd make of the director's cut if I saw it now. Fargo, I didn't hate Fargo the first time I saw it, but I didn't much care for it. I didn't see what all the fuss was about. Honestly found it a bit confusing. When I watched it again a few years ago, it made perfect sense and I absolutely loved that film. In fact, it's probably my favourite Coen Brothers film. Saturday Night Fever as well. Didn't much care for Saturday Night Fever when I first saw it, but now I think it's a great film. And I guess maybe Alien as well, but I still think Alien's massively overrated. Are there any films you didn't like, but you'd still give them the benefit of the doubt to revisit them? It's hard to say, because with certain films I always kind of have my reasons to dislike a certain film. But there's a lot of films I've given a second chance to and I've gotten on board with, like Saturday Night Fever and Fargo. I'm curious about The Draftman's Contract. Curious to give that another go. Rebel Without a Cause, definitely one that needs to be revisited at some point. And also Army of Darkness. I think I'd get on with Army of Darkness more now than I did back then. But yeah, that's my kind of answer really. Right, so the next question comes from Kurt Smith, your friend. What is the one DVD or Blu-ray that you'd like to add to your collection that eludes you? At the moment, I don't really have an answer. Most of the Holy Grails I already have, and I'm not going to stop collecting physical media, but I'm definitely slowing down this year. Not buying as many as I used to, purely for money and for shelf space. If this Q&A was hosted a few years ago, I'd have a really, really good list. Because there were many titles that eluded me. Stanley Kubrick's Fear and Desire. I kept eyeing that up for years, literal years. I kept entering eBay auctions and I kept bailing out either because I was outbid or the price got too high for me. I managed to get it a few years ago, and the thing is I haven't really regretted it, even though I only got it for completionist's sake, because I think that film's a bit crap. Up until very early 2020, the original Star Wars trilogy. The box that I've got, for the longest time it was very, very expensive. There was a prequel variant, and the prequel variant was much, much cheaper. But now, as of 2020, the prices have kind of matched. In fact, I think the prequel set might be ever so slightly more expensive now, which I find very, very amusing. Fist of Fun Series 2 took many, many, many months, possibly even a year, for a copy to finally show up on eBay for a decent price. So yeah, I'm very happy to finally have a copy of Series 2. Series 1 is very easy to get, but not Series 2 for some reason. Ash Anthology 1 as well, which I mentioned earlier. So I couldn't really give you a proper answer. If I had to pick Bloodsport, a few years ago they actually released that in the UK as a 4K, but the 4K version was like a limited edition, very expensive thing. And for some reason, even though it's long sold out, they haven't released a standard version of it, either on 4K or on Blu-ray. I'm just wishing that they'd release it on Blu-ray. I mean, I've got it on VHS, and I'm happy with the VHS copy. I think it's out on Blu-ray in like America or Germany, so I might import like the German disc if I'm desperate enough. Another mention would be Chicken and Duck Talk. I would love to get that film on Blu-ray, but it's only been released in Hong Kong. I think it is region free and it does have English subtitles, but at the moment it's very, very expensive, especially on the secondary market. Not even because of the item itself, but because of the import fees. So it's possibly very unlikely I'm going to add that to the collection, which is the same really. Okay, so the final set of questions come from long-time viewer of the channel, the original being. What Holy Grail vinyl records are you hoping to get into your collection? This is going to be a completely off-the-wall answer, and I'm going to get many, many, many funny looks when I say this. And admittedly, if this record was a lot more common, I'd only buy it as like a novelty more than anything. The Fireman Sam single from the 80s, the theme song. I'm not into kids' music or kids' TV or anything like that, so it wouldn't be the normal thing I'd usually buy. But if you actually listen to the song, it's on YouTube and stuff like that, it fucking slaps. Like, honest to God, it does. It has no right being as good as it is, like, as a song. I mean, fuck's sake, there's like a rock guitar solo in the middle of it, which is just frankly over the top, but I just find it hilarious. They did release it as a 7-inch single back in the 80s, but no copies seem to be for sale on eBay or Discogs. I've never seen a copy for sale. And unfortunately, the problem with vinyl is buying it's the first thing, making sure it actually works and sounds decent is another thing. So, and because it's a kid's record, it's very, very unlikely it'll be in very good condition at all. Still, I guess I'd have to pick that one. The next question is, have you dipped into the Doctor Who extended universe with audios, novels, etc.? I've listened to some Big Finish, and I have a few of the audio dramas on CD, but to be honest, not really. To be honest, I'm very kind of on and off with Doctor Who. Sometimes I kind of phases where I'm really, really into it, and then there's some phases where it just kind of flatlines. And also, I'm not a die-hard fan, so I'm not really that interested in consuming all the shit outside of the main show. In fact, I've not even watched the 2005 series yet. I know, right, I've constantly said, I'll get around to it. I never bloody do. Right, favourite alcoholic drink? For me, it's cider all the way. I'd have to go with cider as well, actually. Pretty much any type of cider, flavoured, straight, whatever. I don't really like alcoholic drinks generally. I don't like beer. I don't think I like wine. I don't like shots or anything like that. So, but I think cider's probably one of the more reliable ones. I don't mind a bit of lager shandy as well. But yeah, I don't really drink that much, so that's probably why the question isn't as full as it probably should be. But I do like a good cider every now and again. So his last question is, what's your favourite weird, off-the-wall, batshit film you've ever seen? For me, it's 1996's Killer Tongue. I don't think I've ever heard of that film, actually. God, there's loads. Over the past 6 years or so, I've been watching a lot of really weird B movies. So I could easily just pick any of those films I've seen from there. Mystics in Bali was the first proper, truly off-the-wall film I've ever saw. I've talked about the film many times in the past, but really, really good film, really good fun. Very weird film as well. There's a film I watched semi-recently called Alien Beasts, directed by a guy called Carl J. Suckernick. Very, very, very bizarre film. It doesn't really have a narrative per se. It's just basically just wherever his mind goes. Shot entirely on a VHS camcorder with his friends and his neighbours. Unlike Peer Piece, it's not really exploitative, and there's something really wholesome about it. But interesting note, Carl J. Suckernick actually has schizophrenia, so that kind of explains a lot about why the film is so off the wall. But there's something weirdly wholesome about the fact that he got his friends and his neighbours to help him pull this film off. Acting Maximus, a film which was released by Troma. The best way I can describe it is it's like a Power Rangers episode written by AI. It's so bizarre. It's, like with a lot of these films, you just have to see them to believe them. And I kind of feel like I've undersold a lot of them. But just trust me, just watch them for yourself, and you'll see where I'm coming from. Right, so that is the end of the Q&A part of this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I must give a great thank you to everyone who submitted questions. You guys are amazing. I'm truly grateful for the support. Here's to another 10 years on YouTube, unless YouTube fucks up and the world catches fire or something, which could probably happen in the next 10 years. I don't know. So, thank you for watching. Do I have any plans for the future? No, I'm just going to keep doing the same old shit as usual. Anyway, bye.